Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. Our subject today is that we want to introduce you to is the Coffee County Children's Advocacy Center. Kind of a mouthful. And we have with us, as our guest will tell us all about the center, Ms. Joyce Prusak. Prusak?
Mm-hmm.
Prusak.
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 Mm-hmm.
Joyce Prusak, who is the Executive Director of the Coffee County Children's Advocacy Center. So, thanks for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it, and maybe it would help if we started by telling the folks a little bit about what the Advocacy Center is. Go ahead, give us a brief introduction.
And you're right, it is a mouthful. We have board members, a lot of people that struggle with that name. We always say CAC for short. It makes it a little easier for people. But the Children's Advocacy Center works here in Coffee County to help children who are victims of severe abuse. So we only see the worst of the worst cases. We let the Department of Children's Services and law enforcement kind of define what severe abuse is. But for instance, in the state of Tennessee, any child that's reportedly possibly a victim of child sexual abuse, that's considered severe. So last year, nearly 70% of the cases that we worked with were children who were possible victims of sexual abuse. But we provide services to those families and to those children as soon as they make the report. Then we work with them through the process of the investigation and then help them, hopefully give them hope and healing after that they've made a disclosure.
Well, all right, let's cut there with a break, folks, and we'll come back and pick up where we're leaving off.
The glory days. Running to daylight on the gridiron. And chasing a ball with a mind of its own. Cheering the team to victory. And marching to the beat of your own drum. Memories that last a lifetime. But sometimes we're reminded of our glory days in ways we'd rather forget. Get back in the game.
The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live and play well.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Keith Barnett here at Russell Barnett Ford in Winchester. Check out the 2018 Ford Taurus, yours today for $26,992. That's Russell Barnett Ford on 41A in Winchester, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. And remember, my question is, why buy anywhere else?
We're talking today, folks, with Joyce Prusak, who is the Executive Director of the Coffee County Advocacy Children's Center. Children's Advocacy Center.
Children's Advocacy Center.
Yeah, that's a mouthful, both in terms of total and in the sequence. Okay, and Joyce was just giving us a rundown on basically what they do, and let's pick up there. Maybe we could start by telling the folks what an abuse is.
Sure. In the state of Tennessee, first of all, anybody that suspects that a child is a victim of abuse, whether it's physical abuse, that the child's being hurt at home, or by a relative or by some family friend, anybody, if you suspect that a child's being abused in Tennessee, you have to report it. You don't have to know for a fact, you just have to report it. So when those reports of abuse come in, the Department of Children's Services works with law enforcement to determine what level of abuse that is and how severe it is. So we get kids that are possibly sexually abused, we get children that are physically abused, we get children that are exposed to drugs, sometimes where homes are selling drugs, sometimes where homes are actually producing drugs. You know, we have a pretty big problem here still with meth and kids being in that kind of environment, so we'll get those kind of cases as well. It just kind of, honestly, it depends on what kind of day, you know, we have in our community and what kind of calls get in terms of what kind of children and what kind of cases actually come to us.
Well, where else do they go?
Well, if it's not a severe abuse case, the cases are just handled by the Department of Children's Services. So
you're saying you only get the severe ones?
Yes, we only get the worst of the worst cases. So last year we had close to 300 children that came through us. If we were to get every child in Coffee County that was reported abused, we would have over 1,000 children every year.
So other folks in the county are taking care of most of them, really, huh?
Right. And what we do is, because the severe abuse cases usually involve more components of the investigation, we try to provide all of that for members of what we call our Child Protective Investigative Team. So that includes the Department of Children's Services, that includes law enforcement. Like, we work really closely with the Tullahoma Police Department to work on cases that are reported in Tullahoma. And we work with them to do the interview of the child. We have a medical clinic on site for kids that are victims of sexual abuse, to do medical exams of them right at our center instead of having to send them to Nashville to go and have those exams. And then we do mental health services for that family and whatever that child and family might need to kind of get through the trauma that they've experienced.
Okay. How mostly do these come to your attention? Is it primarily from Children's Services?
Primarily through Children's Services or law enforcement, sometimes the district attorney's office. The majority of our referrals come, though, from teachers that see these kids every day and notice changes in their behaviors and changes in demeanor or appearance and that sort of thing, and recognize, hey, something's happened to this child. So they're often the ones that'll make that phone call.
Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
Teachers?
Yeah, teachers. Usually in summer we get a little bit of a lull because there's nobody else that's seeing that child every day.
Yeah.
But anybody in the state can call, but a lot of our referrals do come from teachers.
Okay. How are you? When did you start, for beginners?
So the center was founded in 2005. It was founded by a group of women in Coffee County called Coffee County Church Women United, and I have heard various stories of them having $14 or $16 or $17, depending on who you ask. I get a different amount, but they just decided that this was something that the community was missing. There was a lady who's actually here in Tullahoma, Bonnie Watts, who was from a community where there was a child advocacy center, so she knew about the model, and she kind of just led the charge to get one started here in Coffee County.
Ah, very good. Where does your money come from?
Money is always the big question mark for us.
Maybe we should start that with a different money question, and that is, how much does it cost to have your service?
So this is something that as an organization we've been committed to from day one, is we never charge a child or a family for anything that we do. We don't charge anyone who comes through our doors. We don't charge schools when we go into their schools and do prevention programs for them. Everything that we do is provided free, regardless of insurance or anything like that. So even when we do mental health services, when a child would go somewhere else and they'd have to process insurance, we don't take insurance, we don't do anything.
Yeah. Where's your money come from?
So that's where we rely tremendously on the community, and we've been fortunate for that. A great part of our budget, a little over 60%, is from the state of Tennessee, because child advocacy centers are actually in state law. We are the only ones that are allowed to do interviews of children who have been sexually abused. Those interviews can then be admitted in court. So they provide us some funding to provide that service to the community. But in addition to the state grants, we rely heavily on local donations, small foundation grants. I feel like every month or so I'm writing a different grant to get a $2,000 or $3,000, but it all adds up, and it's all very much needed, because we don't, when families experience trauma and the abuse that happens to the child, it happens to all of them. So we don't want to add more stress to them by having to charge them or make them pay for anything. So everything we do is free for them.
Okay. Well, we're very, very fortunate to have that kind of service available. Money is always, for people who are living in an environment of abuse, money is always a problem.
It is.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how you conduct your program. How do you get these people reported to you from a variety of sources,
Mm-hmm.
and what do you do then, and what kinds of treatment are you offering?
Sure. So as soon as a call is made to us that a child's been possibly abused, we work with the Department of Children's Services and law enforcement to get that child and the family to come to our center. And our center is actually located on the square in Manchester at the moment, and I invite anybody who ever wants to have a tour of it to come and have a tour. We just ask that you call us first, because we want to respect the privacy of children.
You're where in
Sure,
Manchester?
on the square,
On the square.
104 North Spring Street, 2 doors down from Tolliver's Pawn Shop, which is the one thing everybody seems to know, but we're right there. But the child and the family then is brought to us. So we're a child-friendly, neutral facility. Before we existed, when a child would make a report of abuse, the child would often be taken to the police department, or they would be taken to an attorney's office, or they'd be taken to the principal's office at the school. And, that's scary for a kid.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a place that's supposed to be comfortable for them, and we are neutral. So we work with law enforcement, we work with the Department of Children's Services, but we're completely independent from them. So we have someone on our staff who is a forensic interviewer, and there are actually 3 of us trained at the center to do forensic interviews, and that's the person who actually talks to the child, and that's the critical part.
Where does forensic come in?
Forensic is that there's science behind it. So it's not like, CSI and, you got forensic evidence and you're digging through mud and trying to find things, or DNA and that sort of stuff. But it's just science behind how we actually conduct the interviews. So we ask children a lot of questions, but we ask them in a very open-ended way to try to get the child to tell his or her own story.
Right.
So, anybody that has kids knows if you ask a child something, they're often going to give you the answer they expect.
Yeah.
So this is, we call it a funnel approach, where we ask kids just some very broad questions to try and get down to what may or may not have happened. Not every child that comes to us actually ends up having been a victim of abuse, and that's just as important to find out as it is to find out those that have been hurt.
That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think we can talk some more along that line, but first let's take a short break, folks, and we'll be right back.
The wait is finally over. The all-new redesigned Ford Ranger is back at Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma. Stop and test drive one today at Russell Barnett Ford of Tullahoma on Highway 55, home of the lifetime powertrain warranty. And remember, my question is, why buy anywhere else?
It's time for every family and business in Tullahoma to go green and recycle. Tullahoma Public Works makes it simple and easy to recycle. Just place your recyclable materials, paper, plastic, aluminum, and cardboard beside your garbage container on the same day your garbage is picked up. Your recycled materials don't have to be in a fancy container. Recycling is not only the right thing to do, it makes sense. Recycling pays. Paying to bury our garbage costs each of us. Please do your part. Let's go green, Tullahoma, and recycle.
When your family suffers the loss of a loved one, the caring and compassionate staff at Tullahoma Funeral Home and Coffee County Funeral Chapel are standing by to assist you in every way possible. We are proud to support local industry and offer only Batesville caskets. Many funeral homes don't own or operate a crematory. We utilize the only crematory in Coffee County. Your loved one never leaves Coffee County. We can accommodate any need and any budget. Consider our complete pre-need service to remove this burden from your family during their time of grief. Lock in today's low costs and protect from inflation. Tullahoma Funeral Home and Coffee County Funeral Chapel. Our family caring for your family.
We're talking today, folks, with Joyce Prusak, who is the Executive Director of the Coffee County Children's Advocacy Center. And they are dealing with kids who have been abused, and we've been trying to get some insight into how that all comes about and what kind of treatment. So you have a staff of how many? 4.
We're small but mighty. So we've done a lot of work with the little that we have.
And what are they? They need to be specialized in something?
Yeah. All of us are trained or have education in like child development. I have a couple of former teachers that actually work with us. One of them does our prevention program in the schools. So she uses her educational tools to help teach children about abuse and keeping themselves safe, because that's really important. Currently our forensic interviewer was actually a former teacher as well. So it's just kind of understanding child development. We're all specifically trained in certain tools when it comes to, child abuse and what's needed. And then we have our therapist, who's actually a contract position, that comes in for us 2 days a week.
Therapist? Mm-hmm. What kind of therapy?
She does it's trauma-focused therapy, so it's therapy that's specifically meant to deal with the trauma that a child and a family has experienced from abuse. So she works not only with the child, she will work with the parents, then if it's a non-offending parent. We never allow an offender on our property, so if a parent is the one who allegedly hurt the child, we don't work with that family member. But more often than not, it may not.
Who does?
We would hope the criminal justice system, but there are resources like Centerstone. There are resources for offenders that can do therapy for adults. But our biggest thing is making sure that our facility is safe for these kids and making sure that they feel safe enough to talk. And if the offender is on property, that doesn't create a healthy environment for them.
Yeah. That's understandable. Okay, well, talk a little bit more about the kinds of treatment that you are offering.
Sure. So when the child's being interviewed, we actually have someone that's called our child and family advocate. She works with the parents or the guardians, whoever brings that child to us, to kind of help identify what that family needs. Because a lot of families need different things. Sometimes when kids make a disclosure of abuse, they're placed with a family member to live for a little while, or a grandparent. They may need help with housing or food or utilities. They may need therapy themselves, so she'll help make referrals for that sort of thing. She makes the referrals for the medical exams, the mental health services, what have you. Then Heather, who's our prevention person, is the one who goes into the schools. So our goal is not only to treat abuse, but also to help prevent it. And that's why we do programs both for students as well as adults. We want to make sure that everybody recognizes that they have an ability and a responsibility to protect children. And then our therapist, she does the trauma-focused, it's cognitive behavioral therapy, it's called, but she uses different modules with children and with families depending on their ages. We have some that are as little as 3 that are coming for therapy, so she does play therapy things with them, and just kind of works with them until she feels that that child has addressed whatever needs that have developed from the abuse. But sometimes those don't go away. So, there are people that are in therapy for life. There are people that go through our process and need therapy 5 years down the road. People experience abuse differently. There's not one way. And there's not a fix. We just want to give.
Sounds to me like every case is different.
It is, and everybody experiences it differently. We just really want to be able to give children and families that gift of hope and healing. That even though this has happened to the child and it's happened to the family because they've all experienced it in some way, but there's more. They can still get back to having a healthy childhood. And we have so much information these days about, like, we call them ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences Studies, that when children experience some things early on in life, like how those are carried with them and then manifest into, diseases later on. And they can be so costly not only for the person but for society as a whole. So we really are trying, and not just us, it's a huge movement around the country. Tennessee has a big movement about it, making sure that we get intervention programs in to help, so that way the costs aren't as great later on.
Intervention, okay. And in addition to intervention, the school program, for example, is that just to increase awareness among the teachers or the kids, or
both?
Yes.
Yeah, both. We do programs specifically for teachers and daycares and anybody that runs a program that's responsible for children, to teach them to look for the signs of abuse, what to do if a child reports abuse, and that sort of thing, which is critical. But we're also teaching kids, who can they identify? Like if someone tries to hurt them, who do they go to for help? We don't teach stranger danger anymore. It's not strangers that are hurting our kids. Over 90% of children that are abused, they are abused by someone that they know or that their family knows. It's someone that they love. It's someone that they trust. You hear still the stories about somebody driving around the neighborhood, but that's not the majority of what we see.
What is the majority?
So usually family, not necessarily immediate family, a lot of extended family. We get reports from, aunts, uncles, cousins. We get some cases of child-on-child abuse, but, where the one child is much older than the other child. Yeah. And those are really unique because we also need to look at it as to where did that older child learn that behavior? Were they a victim themselves? So those are sometimes the hardest cases for us to do, but it's usually family, friends. People have parties and they invite people into their home, and sometimes there's drugs used or alcohol used, and kids sometimes get lost in the mix.
Something called on-site therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's the site?
The site is at our center. So before we had therapy at our center, we used to have to refer everybody out. So then they would have to pay for it or use their insurance. And it's the same with our medical exams. We have a partnership with Our Kids in Nashville, which they are trained specifically to do exams on children that are sexually abused. And we opened that clinic about 7 years ago. Before we had it, we would send kids to Nashville, and we would only get 1 or 2 kids from Coffee County every year that would go. And now that we have it right at our center, we usually have between 50 and 60 kids every year that get those medical exams. So we kind of, to say, like from a movie, if you build it, they will come. We built it they were there, but now it's being utilized. So it was a critical need that just wasn't being met locally.
Okay. How do you you have a lot of friends you rely on for money?
Yes.
For support, and I imagine that has to be a big part of your activity, trying to create that support, which hopefully would be on an ongoing basis. You know, not a one-shot deal.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, folks, we're about to run out of time, and so we're going to have to take a short break, and then come back and wind up.
Russell Barnett Hometown Auto Rental has proudly served your auto rental for over 30 years. Check out this huge selection to choose from. Small car, mid-size car, full-size car, crossover vehicle, SUV, minivan, pickup trucks, 12 and 15 passenger vans. Whether big or small, Russell Barnett Hometown Auto Rental has them all. Stop by our 2 locations to serve you, Tullahoma and in Winchester. And remember, my question is, why rent anywhere else?
So you've been meaning to do something healthy, commune with nature, get outdoors and meet new people. We have the perfect solution. Come hike with us. You can find a Tennessee Trails Association chapter near you, including Clarksville, Columbia Franklin, Highland Rim, Jackson, Knoxville, Oak Ridge, Memphis, Murfreesboro, Nashville, Plateau at Crossville, and Upper Cumberland. We're on the web at TennesseeTrails.org. It's fun, it's stress-free, and it's good for you. See you on the trails.
We've been talking today, folks, with Joyce Prusak, who is the Executive Director of the Coffee County Children's Advocacy Center. And very complicated name to deal with, but anyway, she's been giving us insight into a very important program that we really don't hear much about. So Joyce, I want to thank you for starters for taking time to come and share your program with us. And is there a word you'd like to say to the public out there? You want to speak
Sure.
direct to the audience?
Sure. The one thing I want to thank people for is making sure that the Children's Advocacy Center has been able to continue to keep its doors open. The Child Advocacy Center really relies on community support to do the work that we do, and it's critical that we have that support that continues on into the future. When I took this job a little over 12 years ago, I had no doubt that I could do the job, but my fear was I kept hearing that child abuse is a community problem, and it is a community problem. But we've been really fortunate that we are in a community that cares. We are in a community that really wants to see its children thrive. So we just continue to ask for support. People are probably tired of us doing that over and over again, but it is really important to make sure that these children have healthy futures. It's important not only for the children, but also to make sure that our community as a whole is healthier as we're moving forward. So, and anybody can give me a call.
Yeah. Well, very good. And thanks again for taking the time to join us. And maybe it'll generate a little support for you. Meanwhile, folks, we want to thank you for inviting us into your parlor, and we will see you next time.